It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Welcome back. We got State Representative Josh Miller is back with us from District 66 out of Heber Springs. Josh, good morning to you.
Good morning, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. I wanted to get your, first of all, just your general reaction in the last 2 weeks. We had a guilty plea from Milton Russell Rusty Cranford, and it implicated Senator Jeremy Hutchinson taking $500,000 in bribes, is what the court documents allege. Are you surprised?
Paul, nothing surprises me anymore about that place. I'm saddened. If all this is true, and I mean that's the way it looks, it is right now. No wonder people do not trust their elected officials or our system or whatever anymore. Corruption is not a single party issue, and it runs deep in both parties, I'm afraid. And man, it just sucks, for lack of a better word, because not only do you have people who get elected because they tell folks they're going to govern one way, and then they after they get elected, they decide to go do something completely different than what they told their constituents, and but then also they're taking bribes and doing all this stuff.
Are you there, Josh?
I am.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, we lost just the last part of what you said. So today at I think 11 is what I read, but it may be, I think they're kind of doing something in the late morning and early afternoon. There's supposed to be a press conference where Jim Hendren, Senator Hendren, and Senator Dismang are going to be announcing rules changes concerning ethics. What the Gazette reported had to do with attorney legislators representing their clients, as well as, people having to disclose whether or not they do business with a Medicaid entity. And I just thought to myself, well, let me just get your reaction to that. Is this too little, too late from the leadership that's been in the leadership the whole time this stuff's been going on?
I believe it is. Personally, it is. I mean, hey, anything they want to do to, promote good behavior, I'm all for it. As you know, Paul, Senator King and myself, mainly Senator Brian King, had run the Medicaid provider disclosure bill a couple of different times. Ran it as a rule change in legislative council. Couldn't get anybody to support it. We ran it. It actually did pass the Senate this last session. Died in House State Agencies Committee, unfortunately. But it's just common sense stuff like that these folks have not wanted to implement for so long, because evidently there's been quite a few folks on the gravy train.
Yeah. I think there's still people that we don't even know, we don't even know about yet. And so talk about, real quick, you say it died in the House State Agencies Committee. You were there in that committee, right? I mean, you and Brian were speaking for the bill.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That is correct.
I mean, why did they not? Why did they not like it? It seems like it passed the Senate, and then they just let the House do the dirty work of torpedoing the bill. I mean, this type of accountability, it seemed to me, made a lot of people very nervous.
I think so. I mean, I know there was one argument where that was made against the bill, that the bill was way too broad, and then there was another argument that the bill was way too narrow. And I can't. I don't have I never could understand what the actual real reasons were that people would want to be against this, other than either they were just told to be against it, or or they didn't want it to affect them personally. I don't know. But it's it's sad. I mean, people, we didn't say the bill didn't make it illegal for a legislator to do business with or whatever a Medicaid provider. It just said you had to disclose it. Just have to make your constituents aware of the fact that, in my case, hey, if I'm doing $80,000 to $100,000 a year worth of business in my personal business with, say, Baptist Hospital up here in Heber Springs. Well, my constituents ought to have the right to know that, because then that, they might think, well, hey, Baptists might have Josh's ear when it comes time to vote on Medicaid spending.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, we have to disclose everything else. I mean, heck, a registered lobbyist can't buy me a Coca-Cola when I'm down there in Little Rock or anywhere else for that matter. We certainly don't, they can't spend $5 on us for lunch, but we want to, because of all our ethics laws and reforms and so forth, but, we don't want to put a stop to, or we just don't want to require folks to disclose what's actually going on. And it doesn't make any sense to me, and I'm hoping and I'm optimistic that maybe we can get it past this upcoming session. Who knows?
Well, I mean, I certainly, for the sake of the people, for the sake of good government, of course we want these, we want these reforms that, Linda Collins Smith had a good one. Attorneys don't need to be representing their clients before the legislature, or legislator attorneys. And of course, she's targeted in a primary, and so was Brian King, targeted in a primary, and they both lost those primaries. And yet they're the two senators, Josh, that were trying to expose everything we're now seeing slowly drip out. And so, Senator Terry, I think that's why, Senator Terry Rice, for example, called on the resignation of Jeremy Hutchinson, and so did Linda Collins Smith, Bill Sample, State Representative John Payton. I think it's because the confidence in our government right now is extremely low, and especially for Republicans. And I'd love to get your thoughts on this, Josh Miller. What does this do to the Republican Party, where people campaign on being the moral standard, the party that's on the moral high ground compared to the Democrats, and yet we're in control of the leadership, we're in control of the legislative branch of government, the executive branch of government, and yet the guys at the helm are very corrupt, it appears.
Well, I will say this, Paul. If you put Representative Josh Miller in the shoes of Senator Jeremy Hutchinson right now, there would be no cause for me to resign, because I would have already been thrown out. And that's there. I would have been called on to resign and made to resign months ago. And you're absolutely right. Look, any of this stuff, it hurts the party, but the party's been hurt for a long time. The party's been hurt just not even quite a year after it gained the majority in the state, because the party didn't do what it told the people it was going to do. And we went away from standing for what the principles are that are laid out in the Republican Party platform. This other stuff, this hurts. It hurts because it hurts people's confidence in their leaders, in their government. It's sad. I don't think it's asking too much of Senator Hutchinson to resign. I mean, he's not running again anyway. We've got 6 months left. Step aside. Don't don't drag this out any further. But like I said, I can guarantee you, if it had been Senator Linda Collins Smith, Representative John Payton, myself, or Senator Brian King, we'd have already been thrown out.
Yeah, because you guys are not a part of the club, of the good old boys system, as it is. It's very protectionist. I mean, we have seen, and when I say the leadership, I mean, I consider that, John Woods used to be in these leadership positions. Jake Files was the chairman of the Revenue and Taxation Committee. And so you look at this, and now we have Jeremy Hutchinson, who's the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. I mean, these are people who are, protectors of the status quo. There's more to come out too, I believe. And so, I mean, I appreciate what you're saying, Josh, about, Jeremy needing to just go ahead and quit, dragging this out. I tweeted the other day that, he needs to resign, maybe take a plea, and who knows who else, he may give up. It's clear that Rusty Cranford took a plea and gave up Jeremy Hutchinson. So we'll see kind of where this goes from here. I mean, where does this go from here? I mean, how do we recover this, the reputation and the faith that we want? I mean, Josh, here's my thing. I would like to be talking about cutting spending, legitimately having this conversation of cutting spending, actually cutting taxes, reducing regulations. I'd want to go into like the esoteric details of performance-based budgeting for our bureaucracies and activities-based costing for our bureaucracies and our government. Those are fundamentally conservative ideas to limit the size and scope, to prevent the growth of government. But at this point, we have dishonest government. We can't really even have the conversations I want to have until we have honesty restored. And I'm to the point where, I may disagree with some Democrats' socialist tendencies, but if they're an honest Democrat, I'd almost rather have that than have these corrupt Republicans that are dragging everybody else down with them.
Paul, I couldn't agree more. I probably get along just as well. I get along better with a lot of my Democrat colleagues, with whom I could not be more polar opposite, as far as some political issues are concerned. But you know what I appreciate about them is they're honest people, and they're honest about what their convictions are, for one. That's what, that in order to ever build a consensus, to ever, whether you want to say reach a compromise, make a deal, whatever, you have to have two individuals or two parties that are both being honest about what their starting positions are. And when you've got a bunch of moving target Republicans, you don't ever know what their convictions may or may not be on any certain issue. And not all Republicans are like that. There are some Republicans who I may disagree with, who have an honest conviction that's different than mine, and that's okay. They're honest about it. But I'm right there with you. I am. You give me some good, ethical people that are just honest about what their convictions are, and that just want to represent their constituents, and do what their constituents have sent them to do. That's the way our system was set up. It's not complicated. It can still work. We just got to go back to it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. State Representative Josh Miller, I appreciate you coming on this morning.
Hey, thanks a lot, Paul.
All right.
Appreciate you,
Yes,
bud.
sir.